These are our top 10, our finalists that are all up to win our live award show this week. Congrats for making it. And Mike and Dennis were not here for our selections critique, so going to lean on them a lot to talk about these images, and we'll try to go through them and not take too long. But we've kind of talked about this one already, Mike and Dennis, because we saw it in our Photographer of the Year portfolio as well. But any quick thoughts on this for this specific category?
Yeah, absolutely well deserved. That's in the top 10 for Photo of the Year, definitely. So because I think there are a lot of storms around New Mexico in a certain time of year, but as Mike said earlier, there's so much more in this shot, so much effort to get this one composition-wise, and you already said it, you need to hike a lot, or so you need to search for a certain dune which is not completely covered with footsteps, and so there it's not just taking your camera gear out and press the shutter button. So yeah, and all in all, it's almost for me a black and white version, but it isn't.
Yeah,
so the scene is just unreal. I love it.
Yeah, they kind of bounce off of what Dennis was just saying there, is that like there's a lot of effort obviously to drive into white sands, to hike out, find the perfect dune, but the what gets me is the composition here, having that line just swooping in, the light's beautiful on the dunes, and then also you can tell that there's thought process on how high or how low to set up the tripod. Like any lower, you're going to have some of that dune kind of protruding above the horizon, and that may have actually just kind of killed the bolt's landing point out there, right? May not have seen that if the tripod is a little bit lower. And then also like the edit on it is fantastic. It's very soft. It's got this Dennis, you mentioned kind of like a black and white with like a little bit of like a hint of orange mixed in there. So it's really, really well done and really well executed in both just the field work and the digital darkroom.
All right, congrats to that photographer, and we'll go on to this next one. And what do you chaps? I'm going to just use random words now, but think about this one.
Nice sell, I think. Yeah, very difficult conditions here. I think it's well done. So because the sun is directly behind the storm, but underneath, but it's shining right into the lens. And it's so difficult to balance everything out in this one. But the whole structure is clearly visible. It's not just a silhouette of the storm or so. And even the lightning shows up. So for me, yeah, you never will get rid of some overexposed areas in such a scene, I think. But in this case, they don't matter, I think. The anvil is on the top left a bit bright, but that's okay for this one because it's very bright anyways, because the sun is directly behind it. So yeah, but I like the mood in here with the very warm tones of the setting sun. So yeah, very, very nice shot of the storm.
Yeah, Mike.
Yes. No, kind of. So once again, just kind of bounce off Dennis there. It's a very technically challenging environment to shoot in when you have the sun just kind of beaming right into your face like that. So they managed the exposure really well on this, and you're looking into the sun. So obviously there's going to be areas where the highlights are blown out. It's the sun. So they managed the rest of the scene very, very well, and to be able to get that crawler up there to where it's visible, because I know we've all had crawlers where you're kind of like zooming in 600%, like there it is, but like it's actually there and visible. And the other thing is to comment on is very well done with the composition. I know there's really not much of a composition per se in regards to any sort of elements, but when you see a scene like this and you have great structure and there's no foreground, make it about the sky. Include the horizon to establish that there is indeed a horizon, right? But you don't need a lot of dead space with kind of boring foreground So they did a really good job here by just having that sliver of horizon to say, hey, here's the horizon. And the rest of the image is about the storm here. They didn't include anything that could be negative space and kind of pulling your eye in an area that you don't want to be pulled into.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely. And that's one of the photos that I happen to also be there as well, and very, very challenging conditions. And I think one thing I like about this photo that I want to say, when you do have that bright like sun in the background, like Mike, like you said, like there's nothing you can do about it. It's the sun, you know. Don't try to save it as much as just kind of embrace it, because when you try to save it, you end up bringing those highlights down and actually kind of creating more problems and kind of faker like looks. And so I like that this is just a soft, bright spot there where the sun is. All right, we'll go on to this next one, which is just one heck of a crawler piercing that upper structure on this thing. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, one heck of a bolt, one heck of a storm. I love the blue hour look to it, and it's not overdone. It's not like oversaturated blue hour, right? It's got that really subtle hue to it. And then props again for kind of realizing the scene, right? You don't have much in your foreground, so use that road kind of coming out of the corner. You've got, it looks like a grain silo out there that might be for scale, which I love. I'm a sucker for scale as well. So having that in there is just wonderful, because, you know, if you're not familiar with storms or Tornado Alley or anything like that, you see a picture of a storm with no scale in it, you have no idea how big or how little that storm is. So when you have something as simple as like a grain silo, all of a sudden you can kind of relate to that, right? And that helps convey a sense of just how big these storms are. And the processing is done on really well on it too. You know, the highlights are very well controlled, especially in the areas where they can be a little challenging at times, where they're coming through the clouds, right? So yeah, just a beautiful shot right here.
Yeah, Dennis, what about you?
Yeah, no, I think more often I see the picture. I think the more it gets to one of my favorite ones from the finalists. So yeah, as Mike said, I love the tones in this one. It's just blue hour, almost the end of blue hour, just a little bit light left to get the scene lit up a bit. And the exposure time here is nailed on spot. So there's no motion blur from the clouds and stuff like this. So, and as you said, Mike, the lighting is very well done in this one here, very balanced. And the road itself, it leads almost to under the base of the storm. So, and yeah. So absolutely fantastic shot, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love the scale idea, because I feel like that the scale in this is so awesome. All right, I think Jennifer and I both really like this one. We were talking about it, and you know what? I think Dennis, you talked about this one as well. I don't remember when or why. Maybe it was on Lightning Photo of the Year or something.
Yeah, on the first round. Yeah.
So, Mikey, what do you think?
Yeah, no, it's a great shot, and I love the idea of kind of looking down that tunnel of the canyon, right? You have like all these different layers there to kind of establish the environment that the storm's in. It's an image, though, in a way it makes you think and try to understand the atmosphere going on here, right? So you've got kind of all these, it's kind of haze in the foreground, right? And I can't tell on my computer right now, and I apologize, but like it looks like maybe just kind of remnant clouds in the valley there, or maybe it's just rain. But it just gives it a really nice atmosphere there. But the part that gets you thinking here is what's right behind the bolt. If you scroll up here, you have that illuminated area of the clouds, and it just kind of protrudes out. I find it really cool. Like I love moments like this where the light does, you know, things optically that don't necessarily make sense within storms, but yet it's nature doing nature things. So that looks really cool back there. This is probably one of the moodier images I feel like I've seen in the contest, where you know, there are very pretty storm photos, and then there are storm photos that like make you feel like I don't want to be anywhere near that or in that. And this is one of those storm photos where you're like, that just looks miserable, but it's really pretty. So yeah, this is to me like the stormiest storm photo I've seen yet.
Awesome. All right, we'll go on to this one. This is speaking of pretty storm photos. Jen, I'm going to ask you to just say something again, because we love having you here and I love hearing your words, but this photo is just magnificent, kind of just color, and there's actually lightning in there, so it's a storm photo, but
I love this image. I love the composition, the contrast. One of my favorite, well, the colors especially too, and one of my favorite things is if you're looking into that land area in the front, I can't stop obsessing about the orange reflection on the roof of that building down there.
And the
I love
train
it
tracks
so much.
right there.
Yeah, and the train tracks. So I love how those orange hues play through the scene. Just the color, the composition, the contrast, stunning.
Yeah. Mike, what about you? Because I think this is probably, I think Dennis also saw this image.
Yeah, so it kind of goes complete opposite of the previous one, right? The previous one was like, oh, stormy. I'd rather be inside. I felt like it's miserable, but still really cool storm photo. This one, when it came across and I saw it in the judging, I remember actually thinking to myself, I said, wow, this is different. Because, this is not necessarily your traditional kind of storm scene. There's no big supercell structure, right? You have the lightning, you have the sun rays coming over, you have the alarm going off in the background. I apologize about that.
I hope that's not an evacuation order or anything.
Yeah, I know, right? Actually, there's like military guys everywhere, so I'm pretty safe right now. But yeah, and then to incorporate kind of the leading line of the coastline, the reflection, and then Jen, like you mentioned, like seeing those little intricate hidden details of just the way the light is reflecting off the train tracks and the roof. There's so much good going on here.
All right, I agree with all that. We'll go on to these. The next two are by the same photographer in the same place or the same mountain. I gotta wonder what it's like to get two shots like this in a row. And obviously, I can't tell if there's timing here, if the time on in Lightroom is actually accurate or not. But they were shot hours apart, so I don't even know if it's the same day. It actually says different days. One was later in the morning, the next morning, 2:45 a.m. So I don't know what they were doing. But they have two shots from generally the same spot in the same night, make our top 10. Congratulations on that. But both of these lightning shots, super moody, just great composition, incredible lighting on the hills. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I was wondering when I saw these come across if they're the same photographer or same day, and that explains that. So, yeah, I mean, once again, these are incorporating environments that you typically wouldn't see with storms, right? This one, we've seen kind of mountain, rugged terrain with lightning, maybe not necessarily that epic of lightning. But the second one is with the cave, right? And putting a camera where the camera necessarily shouldn't be is really cool. And to just think like that, say, okay, I have this epic landscape in front of me. What can I do to make it even more interesting per se, right? So that first shot there, if you go back one real fast, that's your kind of establishing landscape shot, right? But then saying, okay, let's make this epic landscape even more epic, and finding this cave, it looks like, and saying, I'm going to drop my camera in there and I'm going to try and shoot lightning this way. And they did it in a great way too, to where in post they were able to kind of pull out the details of that light kind of bouncing around within the cave there. So really well done. Apologize for the announcement again. I'm going to mute myself.
Can't mute yourself for long, Mike, but hopefully they will shut up back there. This shot, congratulations to one of our finalists. I'm just kidding. They're not going to be able to. It's an airport. This is, Mike said somewhere, said something about scale. Oh, yeah, back on image 3. And I just think the scale here is so insane that it almost, I think we both said that, maybe Dennis, when we first saw this, said AI is a wonderful thing or whatever, something about it just
looks photoshopped.
It looks photoshopped. It looks a little bit otherworldly. I know Mike's jealous he didn't have this shot. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, no, this is like the good versus evil or apocalyptic scene that I think we all kind of hope we have, right? So shooting in cities is always challenging. I think we've experienced that frustration. So looks like this person had access to, a higher, maybe apartment view or a hill. So to get up high and kind of create that sense of scale and that separation amongst the base of the storm with the roofs is really nice. I mean, the beautiful CG in front of everything is just, icing on the cake, chef's kiss.
Yep.
But without that, though, let's be real. Without that bolt, this shot would be nice, but it wouldn't be what it is. having it illuminate the cloud structure and bring out all the textures, and then obviously the landing point in front that you just zoomed in on.
Yeah.
This is definitely something we all strive to be. The only thing, if I have to be critique real fast, the one thing that kind of just got me when I saw it, not necessarily that, because like
Okay, good.
that's lightning. That's lightning. It comes from a compositional standpoint or a cropping standpoint. The light post in the bottom right.
Yeah.
Once I
that's the second
see
thing.
that,
Yeah.
I can't unsee that, because it's such a
Yeah.
bright element in the bottom right corner that once you
Yeah.
look at that,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to not see it. So that's the only constructive criticism I have there.
Yeah, definitely would have probably gotten maybe remove that one and probably this one on the left as well, just to like get rid of them. It's always hard it's hard in a city. It's so hard in a city to have things not jut from the bottom of your frame. And agreed on all that.
One of the things that Mike real fast, just kind of give some tips real fast, is that saved my butt in a lot of shoots, especially like for example volcanoes. Is there's a lot of stuff in the foreground sometimes that you don't necessarily want, but you have this beautiful landscape behind. Same thing here. You have storm, lightning, buildings. 16:9 crop here could be a really nice crop to kind of come in from that bottom right. So you still keep the buildings and everything like that, and the majority of the storm, but it kind of gets rid of that little bit there.
It might be somewhat 16:9 already, but maybe just pulling it up a little bit.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it seems a little bit of a wider crop. Without doing crop thing, I can't tell exactly. So, all right, we'll go on to these last two, and we talked about these in Photographer of the Year. They're both by Brett. Two photos from completely different days. We all talked about this one and how much. I think when Linda was on, she didn't like the trees. Me and Jennifer loved the trees. I think Dennis liked the trees. Mike, what do you think about those 3 trees? Yeah.
Oh man, I'm a tree hugger. I love them. I love not necessarily, once again, they give scale. They're so perfectly spaced out from each other too. It just adds to the symmetry of the shot. So I like the trees. I'm team tree. So that's my my thoughts on the trees. But overall, the structure, fantastic. I remember watching there. I think they did an Instagram live on this day. I wasn't chasing. I had a gig, and I was just like shaking my fist, but also so happy because like that's a beautiful storm. That absolutely beautiful storm. And if I remember correctly, too, it didn't last too long. So to be able to get something like this from a storm that wasn't necessarily 2-3 hours long, yeah, congrats on that.
It sure lasted long enough, let me tell you. I saw I think not too long ago, he actually posted a time lapse of this cell, and it was even more infuriating than this shot. So it was there was a lot of lightning coming out everywhere, and I can't even tell you. I think we all know how rare it is. As much lightning as we see out there when we're chasing. And I mean, you look at the radar and it looks like everybody's just cleaning up on thousands of bolts a day, but it's not that easy. And getting bolts like this to spit out like right in front of structure like this does not happen that much, or as much as you think it would. So this was one heck of a storm, and I love the trees and the scale that they provide with this. It's just fantastic. So and I'll go to this last shot of our finalists, an infuriating day as well, because I was meaning to chase and I didn't, and I probably would have targeted this area, but definitely beautiful tornado and structure, and a rare type of shot to get. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Mike, finish us off with this one.
Oh man, no, I'm gonna run out of adjectives for the day. Yeah, I mean, once again, a fantastic shot, and the thought process to say, hey, I'm going to roll the dice, and I'm going to step back from a tornadic supercell, and I'm going to shoot it wide. There's some tight shots of the tornado that day that I remember seeing. I was like, oh, that's really nice. I'd like to see that tornado. But I think kind of in reference to the contest, we've seen a lot of tornadoes. We've seen a lot of tornadoes in photos. We've seen personally seen tornadoes. I don't want to say it gets old, but in a way it kind of gets repetitive. So to step back and start incorporating the supercell and showing all the mechanisms associated with it and the tornado underneath for scale. Once again, it's a different way of telling a story, that storm. And I mentioned scale again because, you know, we can have a tornado with a grain silo next to it, and all of a sudden that gives scale to that tornado. But then there's very rare instances where you have shots like this, where you have scale to the tornado with the associated storm. And this does a very good job of that. And, you know, the dusty, uh, band up there is just, okay, no big deal. At first, when I almost actually messaged Brett when he posted this, because I was like, "Hey, bro, I think you brushed something on a different white balance."
Yeah.
And then I realized what it was. I was like, "Wow, that's pretty special there." So,
Yeah.
and also, something that stood out to me for the majority of all the portfolios that I get onto people about all the time when I'm doing my critiques is good job on keeping the horizons level. That is such a simple thing to do out in the field. If you guys are ever looking for something to kind of make sure you're doing out in the field besides focus, make sure your horizon is level. Goes a long way in the photo.
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure that we harped on cropping a lot during selections. And I love to see a level horizon. And I like this shot as well. So
can I,
all right, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to give you my cropping analogy real fast for anybody who's just like, I'll crop it in post. So I tell my workshop students this all the time. Let's do a little math here. You pay $4,000 for a 40 megapixel camera. You have to crop it 25% in post. All of a sudden you paid $4,000 for a 30 megapixel camera. Think about it.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the biggest thing is that you can crop in post, and you should at least level your horizon where you're not going to hopefully lose 25%, but getting that composition right in person is key. Although we can't always control where a lightning bolt might land, and that does sometimes mean I'm going to have to crop something. So congratulations to all our finalists and making the top 10, and good luck for the rest of the way.